tutorial. I'm actually redoing the initial GUI tutorial that I did because the quality wasn't that great, and I wanted to make sure to give you guys something more readable. Plus, I've formatted this a little better this time. I've actually pre-made the program here so that I know exactly what I'm doing, and then I'm just going to show you guys how to do it step by step. So this is the program that we will be building here. Just a simple GUI, a JFrame with 2 J panels, split into a grid format. We have an action button here that just gives you a nice little pop-up, and then just a close button to close everything down. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump right into this. So first of all, I always get rid of these comments in the need form. And then I like to build everything in the constructor, so all you got to do in your main is call the constructor, which I know we haven't made yet, but that'll be right here. So constructor is always the name of your class, and there's no return type. And then we are not going to be adding any parameters. So that's all we're doing for that for now. And now we just want to set up some variables for all of our GUI components. I like to start with the JFrame, and we'll just call that frame. And also we want to extend JFrame, extend with an S, and implements action listener. This is what will allow us There we go. Then we just need to import these. Yeah, the JFrame is our container, which is going to hold everything else. The action listener is what waits for the button clicks in this situation. And the reason we're getting an error here is when you implement the action listener, there is a required method, which is your action performed method. Okay, so we need the JFrame. We need JPanels, and I made 2 of those just to keep everything nice and clean, separated, and make sure to import that. And then we need our buttons. For this, we're having a action button and a close button. Then we need to import that as well. Okay, then we just come down to our constructor here, and all we need to say is frame. I don't know why I said drame. Frame equals new JFrame, and then we can actually just implement the title of the frame right here. So this is our title. And that's all we need to do there, so for now at least. Now our panels are the same thing, just with panel. Except in here, instead of a title, this is actually for the layout manager, and we just want to use flow layout, which is actually the default, so technically you don't need to implement it, but this just so you guys have an idea of what's going on there. There's a little more behind the scene. And also this is if you wanted to implement grid layout or any other layout, you can just you know right where to put it. And then we're doing same thing for P1. Okay. And now we set up our buttons. This is button action. And then for the buttons, the argument is what appears on the button. So for this, we want it to say action. Oh. And then same thing for our close button. But then with these, there's something else we need to add. We actually need to add the action listener to them. And all we need to say is this. What this does is it's referring to the program itself. Like to find where button action is inside the constructor of the JFrame. So when you're implementing through the constructor, you just need to say this for adding the action listener to it. And the same thing for the close. Okay, now all we need to do is add our buttons to our panels. So we're going p.add and then button action and then p1.add button close. And then actually what we want to do up here is frame dot set layout, and we want to make this a new grid layout, and we want that to be, I believe it's 2-1. I always forget. No, it's 1-2. So this is rows then columns. I always get them mixed up. So 1 row and then 2 columns, and then we just need to import grid layout. Okay, everything's looking good so far. Now we need to set up the frame. So first of all, we're just gonna do the same thing we just did with the J panel of taking our button and adding it to it. Now we're just going to take the panel and add that to the frame. So first of all, we want the action button first, so we're going to add that first. And now we're going to add our second panel. And then we just need to add some basic stuff for the frame. So we want to set the size. Again, default is a flow layout, so it would just size it accordingly, but for our title, the display, I'm going to make it a little bigger. So and then does it go width and height? I always get these mixed up for whatever reason. Alright, so then we want to go 350 by 80 because it is width and height. Alright, and then there's a couple other things we want to add to the frame. So we want to set resizable to false. Since we have a specific size we want it at, we don't want people to be able to move it around. And then we want to set the location relative to, and we want to say null. What this does is it centers it in our screen when we run the program. That way it's not in the top left corner. It makes it easier to get right to your program. And we also want to, let's see, we definitely need to set it to visible. This is always required. If you don't do this, you will not see your program. So always check and make sure you have this. This is very, very important. And I feel like I'm missing one. Oh, yeah. This one's pretty important too. And then we want to set the default close operation to exit on close. That way when you press the little X in the corner, it actually closes the program. No, we're going to add a close button, so that's not as big of a deal, but it just makes things a little cleaner. So I like to change this to E just to shorten it up. And then what we want to do is create a variable, just call it arg, and we're going to set that to e dot get action command. And the action command will actually be our the name of our buttons. So we can just pull this text and compare it and then figure out which button was pressed through a simple if statement. So if arg equals equals, and when you're testing, you always use two equal signs to check if it's